Hi there, my name is Kathleen Hawkshaw. I am an international speaker and national award-winning blogger from Ireland. And right now we are here in London and I'm with the wonderful George Jerjian. And we are here today to talk about not only what he has been doing recently, but also his brand new book, Spirit of Gratitude, which I am so excited to learn more about. We have been connected obviously for some time now, and I really believe that what he is doing is very transformational for so many different people. But George, as an international speaker, business consultant, and author of 10 books, this being the 10th, how does gratitude connect everything for you?
Gratitude is, another word for gratitude is thankfulness, and the word thankful, thinking are connected. People don't realize the connection between the two, but it goes back to the Old English, the word thanken. And thanken meant a grateful thought. So there was a connection between thinking and thanking. And that's the root of what my book is about, is that people are not really thinking. They think they're thinking, but they're not thinking. And so when they put themselves into a state of gratefulness, and I don't mean the etiquette gratefulness, like thank you very much for what you've done for me. No,
Sure.
That's not the gratefulness I'm talking about. I'm talking about something much deeper and more meaningful and more powerful that actually enhances the way you think. So that's the essence of the gratitude that I talk about. And in a sense, and this has been proven by psychologists, particularly Dr. Robert Emmons at the University of California, Berkeley. He's kind of like the gratitude doctor. And he's done so many tests on people and discovered that a state of gratitude puts you in a joyful state of mind. When you're in a joyful state of mind, you're far more likely to be doing better business, far more likely to have a productive professional life, and be more attractive as a person, because people are attracted to people who are grateful and who appreciate and value you. So, in a sense, it makes you more productive, more joyful. It also prevents stress in your life. And if you're ill, you recover far more quickly because you are in this grateful state of mind. So yeah, there's a lot of benefits to this, and it's not just one thing, it's a whole state of being.
I think it's totally applicable to so many different people in different situations. And I know obviously recently you have been traveling a lot and sharing this message. And for me, I feel that you're changing the perception that we have towards gratitude. I think in the past maybe it's been a little bit more la-di-da, if you think about it. But as you said, the results that come from this are really transformational, not only for business, but also personally. So where did the book come from? Do you feel like this has been within you for some time now, and it was just the time to get it out there and share this message?
That's actually a really good question. I actually did not intend to write this book initially. I thought I would wait another couple of years. I didn't think I was ready. But the stories in this book emanate from a time in my life when I was in a crisis, and I didn't know where to go to seek help. I had to get away from everything and everyone, and so I went on a 30-day silent retreat. This was about just under 3 years ago. And in that retreat, when you are completely cut off from all communication and every single soul, you are completely on your own. There are no voices in your head. Nobody's trying to attract your attention. You give yourself time to delve inside, and you reflect and audit your life. I mean, people spend hundreds of thousands of pounds auditing companies.
Sure.
Nobody audits themselves. And when you audit yourself, you look at all the good things that have happened to you and all the bad things that have happened to you. And in my case, as I went through those stories, I recognized that there's a link. That every time I went through a crisis, there was an opportunity that came right on the back of it. I wasn't even aware of it. It just happened. I only recognized that when I reflected on it. And the power of this is that, coming back to gratitude, is that most of us are grateful for all the good things we have, but we're never grateful for the bad things that happen to us. And my argument is we need to be grateful for the bad things that happen to us, because those are the things that made us move, that made us grow. And hence, you know, why crises are the opportunities, and why your sense of the spirit of gratitude is the kind of vehicle that helps you move into that. I recently heard a wonderful story about eagles, how when a storm is coming, the eagle rises up to meet the storm, and it allows the winds of the storm to lift it up. And so it surmounts the storm and flies above it where it's calm. And in a sense, that's what we need to do when we have crises in our lives. We tend to hunker down and fall down and go into fear mode and allow fear to flood our minds. Whereas we should be like the eagle, using the winds of that crisis to rise above it and become stronger.
I think what you're saying is very powerful, because I know so many of us go through different scenarios, different situations, and experience great pain. And often at the time, we can't identify the opportunity, or we think, why is this happening to me? I don't understand it. And I've spoken with so many people who have gone through these situations, many of whom have identified the opportunity within their pain, or they understand why they have to experience something to push them forward. But there are obviously a vast amount of people who have yet to have that awakening. So when do you feel was the time you really identified that crises are actually opportunities? Because that being your core message, it's so powerful, but I'm curious, when was the moment that you noticed that?
I think it must have been in 2007, when I had a perfect storm in my life. I had we were moving homes. My wife's father had a stroke, so we had to go out and see him. And on my and he died a week later. And then we had to do all the sort of funeral arrangements and all that. But in between, I had a doctor's appointment, and I discovered I had a bone tumor, and they gave me 6 months to live. So you can imagine these three perfect storms combining in my life, and that was like the biggest thing that ever happened to me, and it knocked me out for 6 completely. And when you have a rendezvous with death and you cheat death, you're on bonus time. So you know that there's no second game here. This is it. This is the real McCoy. And you're either going to live this life the way you want to live it and not the way other people want you to live it. And that's, for me, that was the recognition that I'd been cruising through my life. I was in a great place. I loved what I was doing. It was great. But I wasn't really either thankful for my life or even thinking what I was really doing. And it's only when you have a confrontation with death that it knocks you into place and makes you recognize that the most valuable thing that you have, which you haven't considered up to this point, is time. Now, we all value money, and we go to extreme lengths to value money, but we never value time. What we don't recognize in that equation is that money is replaceable, time is not.
Yes.
That's a huge, this is where the thinking and thanking issue happens. And which brings me to the point that one of the most well-known philosophers of the 20th century was a guy called Martin Heidegger, a German, who actually coined, he studied this and he coined this phrase that thankfulness is the pathway into thinking. Because when you're in a thankful state, you recognize the real value of everything. You don't allow the advertising world to completely change the way you look at things and you're not happy until you buy this, this, and this. It makes you change the way you look at things. It makes you see life in the real way. That's when you're really thinking.
I'm thoroughly enjoying getting your perspective on gratitude and understanding the power in realizing that crises are actually opportunities for us and the importance of practicing gratitude and thankfulness. But one thing that really, really intrigues me is obviously the title, Spirit of, and that would make us consider that maybe there's a religious connotation. So can you explain where that came from, what it represents for you?
No, absolutely, Hannah. Spirit of. When I was a kid, flying aeroplanes, as I used to travel from the Sudan. I was in boarding school, so I used to travel 3 times a year back and forth. I used to love planes. Planes were magic to me, flying at the altitudes over the clouds. I was king. It was wonderful. And so when I sort of studied a little bit about aviation, one of the stories that really stuck with me was the story of Charles Lindbergh and his flight on the Spirit of St. Louis. And so when I was looking about a name for my business, I didn't want my own name on it. I've had my name on books, so I just didn't want it to be about me. I wanted it to be about something bigger than me. And I took that Spirit of St. Louis and I thought, well, what's my air transport going to be for this? And so I thought of Spirit of, and it's then that I managed to tag gratitude onto the back of it. But there's an intriguing story with the Spirit of St. Louis and Spirit of Gratitude is that they're kind of like, for me at least, they run in tandem. The Spirit of St. Louis crossed the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, in 1927. Charles Lindbergh had a plane which was effectively just a fuselage full of petrol with wings on it. And he had designed it himself, and he crossed it, and he was the least likely person to travel that because his competitors had more money, considerably more money. They had aircraft that was superior in construction and everything else, but they hadn't quite fathomed the amount of petrol they would need to cross the Atlantic. So they weren't thinking. They weren't in a gratitude mode. They were they had entitlement. And they had a lot of bickering because they were flying several people together.
Sure.
Whereas Charles Lindbergh decided he only wanted one engine, and he wanted to be the only person traveling on that flight. So he didn't have to rely on anybody. He was a meticulous guy, he was a scientific guy, and he literally took the bare minimum of a plane to get him across, and it cost him $15,000. 3 or 4 of his competitors were World War I ace pilots. Their planes cost in excess of $100,000, and they all failed. And he succeeded. So the lesson here is, it's not about the money, and it's not about size. It's about intellect, it's about thinking, and also being respectful to nature. A lot of these guys were so full of themselves, they're ace pilots, or they'd shot down so many planes, they thought they could shoot down nature. It's a state of mind. And so I wanted to use the Spirit of St. Louis on my vehicle. And it's bizarre because as time went on, I discovered that Charles Lindbergh and I shared the same birthday, which is really strange. And then out of the blue, I'm not a person who used to believe in coincidences, but I now know there are no coincidences because 2 months ago, I was invited to St. Louis in Missouri to help 35 teachers become motivated. They'd gone through some trauma and they needed motivation and inspiration, and so they sent out for me. But and I thought, of all the places in the world, why St. Louis? The Spirit of St. Louis, that's where Lindbergh got his contract signed, and the bankers and the tycoons paid money for his flight. And I thought, this is just too much, there's too much coincidence here. So clearly I'm on a path, and I thought, where is the link here? Well, Charles Lindbergh crossed the Atlantic Ocean and created a new era for people. It opened their minds to what was possible. And I think with the Spirit of Gratitude, what I'm doing is helping people cross the ocean of their subconscious minds.
I think, though, you're also doing the same thing that he did in creating a new era. You are changing the perception of gratitude and practicing thankfulness, because from what I've identified with our conversation is that it's not only for personal benefit, but it can also transform your professional life. And I think a lot of business owners can benefit from the fact that by practicing gratitude and understanding the thinking and thankfulness connection and the relation, we can not only have a much more fulfilling life, but also create a lot more opportunity. And I think it's fascinating to see how it's come full circle, and you went to St. Louis and had that experience, seeing as the connection with Lindbergh was so important for you.
Oh, absolutely. But I think it's not just for business people. I think it's for the individuals in businesses or otherwise. This concept of thankfulness puts people in a good state of mind. I mean, today we hear so many people have mental health problems, and I'm convinced that it's to do with aligning their intellect with their emotions. And when you have that huge disconnect, you're completely lost. You're lost in the ocean.
So George, you mentioned crossing the ocean of your subconscious mind. Can you expand upon that for me?
Yes. The subconscious mind is 99% of our minds, and our conscious mind is less than 1%. This is now an established fact in the scientific community. But the world and our educational system is focused on the 1%, the conscious mind. That's where they get us to think harder and so on and so forth. And we leave this big elephant of the subconscious mind untouched. And when you ask people, where's your mind? The first place they think is, that isn't your mind, that's your brain. And the brain is an electrical switching station. Your mind is in every cell of your body. So if you just think at a time when you did something so flawlessly that everything went beautifully, that's when your mind, your thinking mind and your emotional mind were connected. That's your conscious mind and your subconscious mind are totally connected. And therefore, you go through a problem like knife through butter, and it's seamless. The rest of the time, this doesn't work because our mind is here, our thinking mind, and our emotional mind is over here. There's a disconnect. And you can tell people who are lying to you by their body language, because they're not aware. You know, they're thinking something, but their body's betraying them. The body is the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind controls the body. To give you an example, when you're driving a car, you're thinking about, I've got to write a letter, I've got to write an email, I've got to do that Facebook page, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. And you're driving, but you're not thinking of what's in front of you because your subconscious mind is automatically taking control of that. They can see the pedestrian crossing the road. You don't have to think pedestrian crossing, I must stop. No, your subconscious mind is already processing all that.
Sure.
So my point is that what we don't realize is the subconscious mind works very differently from our conscious minds. Our conscious mind needs constant stimulation. It needs new things, otherwise it gets bored. Our subconscious mind is the exact opposite. It wants to know exactly what you're doing. If you plant corn, you'll get corn. If you plant deadly nightshade, a poison, you'll get deadly nightshade. In the subconscious mind, whatever you plant in it is what you will get. So if you've got an attitude of, I don't think I'm going to make this, I just don't have it in me, I look too stupid, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not beautiful enough, guess what? Your subconscious mind will confirm that for you.
I understand you've spoken on this topic around the world, obviously very recently in the US, but how do you feel it links to the book?
I think it links, the thinking mind, as I talked about, I mean, let me just take a step back. It's about thinking. It's not just about gratitude. Gratitude, thankfulness and thinking are connected. If you keep those two connected, you're on the right path. Henry Ford once said, thinking is the hardest thing to do in the world. That's why so few people do it.
It's very true though, isn't it?
People don't, because everybody doesn't realize, but they revert back to the subconscious mind, the way they were brought up, the way they think. And you can't change the subconscious mind by just saying, I'm going to will it. We've done the New Year's resolutions, they don't work, we know that doesn't work. That's willpower, that doesn't work with willpower. You have to change the way your subconscious mind is programmed. So to use technical language, you need a software update. That's what this book is saying. That's the message of this book.
It's been absolutely fascinating speaking with you about this, George, and I can feel your passion and your energy towards this topic. It is incredible. But to connect the dots, if we look at this as the software update, for people. If they are approaching this ready to change their lives, businesses, personal relationships, how can we ensure that they really take on board this value? Because you know just as well as I do, we read books, we watch content and digest it, but it passes through our fingertips and we don't get the results that can be gotten from the actions taken. So considering the power in this book, we want to obviously ensure that everyone who goes and buys this, because it's now available on Amazon, gets the true power from what you are sharing with them. So as a reader, how do you recommend approaching this book in order to get the desired change?
That's a good question, Hannah. One of the things the reason why we read so many books and the material, we recognize the material, we accept it, we know it's good, but it just slides off our minds and it just rests on the bookshelf.
I'm sure we can all relate to that at some point in time.
Right, and this is why I would say to you that once you read this book, what you want to do is, you don't want to retain it in your conscious mind, because you can't. In fact, you can't even with willpower retain it. I mean, how many of us have tried New Year's resolutions and failed within 2-3 weeks? The subconscious mind will sabotage it. If you want to get this material into your head, into your mind, and use it the proper way, you need to have it, if you like, supplanted into your subconscious mind. And there is a way of doing that. This is self-selected hypnosis or whatever you want to call it, but you're using it on yourself. You know the value of it, you want to use it. It's your subconscious mind that needs to be engaged. And to do that, I happily consult with you, and there are programs that will help you to do that.
So this is the first step.
Correct.
On this powerful, powerful journey. So if you would like to know more about George, you can connect with him. You can obviously buy this book. I would highly recommend it. I think it's a fabulous tool for everybody moving forward. And obviously you've got your programs and you work as a speaker and as a consultant. So there are a multitude of ways in which you can help our viewers, obviously. But thank you so much for watching. It's been a pleasure to speak with you, George.
Thank you, Hannah.
I'm excited to see the next steps.
Thank you very much.